Kate Gensler, West High School. Your political platform did not regard immigration. What are your thoughts on DACA, and how do you plan to support or condemn it?
For me, so immigration was not a primary concern on my platform, and this was discussed in the last press conference. For me, I am a supporter though of DACA, and I will do what is under my what is under my power to help dreamers and people that are affected by DACA.
Is there new legislation that has been brought forth at this big conference that supports DACA or condemns it? And what is your response to it?
I am sure that there has been legislation written and put into the bill book regarding DACA and immigration reform. However, for the bills that have reached my table and have passed both Senate and House chambers, none of them have been dealing with immigration whatsoever. So there is no response I can give to that.
Sai Kulipini, Ravenwood. Yesterday, I believe during the opening session, you have strongly supported Bill 18-2-7 or 18-2-8 about net neutrality. And if you did strongly support these bills, and why would you believe that?
Could you read the titles to 2-7, 2-8?
Sure.
To refresh me on
18-2-8 says an act to reinstate net neutrality in Tennessee, and 18-2-7 is an act to ensure a fair and open internet for the state of Tennessee.
Neither of those bills were supported under my. So by opening session, I assume you're talking about my state of the state address.
Mm-hmm.
The only bill I supported dealing with anything net related was Red Senate Bill 1-1, which was about fiber optic cables and establishing that network. So I did not support or discuss those bills, and I'm not familiar with the bills. They have not reached my chamber to my knowledge.
Do you still think that neutrality is a mandatory right to all internet users?
I think that net neutrality is important and should be enforced, yes.
Olivia Stewart, East Hamilton. What would you consider the greatest accomplishment your administration could impose for the citizens of Tennessee?
I think we have, one thing that my administration is proud of is that we are working to help people who are part of often less represented groups, not referring to ethnic minorities, but people who have disabilities. For example, we have worked to help establish protections and help them have an easier life, like be more integrated and help lessen the effects of their disabilities. So, we recently passed GovCap Bill 18-1-2, which was about allowing people with developmental disabilities to request special designation on driver's license and photo identification licenses. So that's something we're proud of, and as we discussed in my gov packet, we also supported legislation about hearing impaired, about helping hearing impaired citizens, about helping newer drivers, just increasing the amount of information and making it easier for them to be a part of society. So I think that's something we're very proud of. We've also worked towards prison reform, as discussed in my gov packet. We supported legislation to give back non-violent felons their right to vote, which we consider integral to the democratic process. We worked to lower the effect of solitary confinement within our state's prisons. We're working to allow non-violent drug offenders to have a reduced or removed sentence from our prisons to lessen and alleviate the overcrowding of our current prison system. So I think those two things, working with prison reforms and helping disadvantaged people who might have issues such as developmental disabilities or hearing disabilities, helping those two groups. That's something where my administration, I think, is proud of.
Ali Roman, TCS. Has GovCap encountered any other bills about improving conditions for those with disabilities, and do you support or condemn them?
I do not believe we have encountered a bill about disabilities that I'm aware of from the red, white, or blue, unless
vocational rehabilitation.
have we voted or discussed it for passage though?
Yeah, we passed.
We passed it.
Okay, so we apparently my GovCap is informing me we did pass a bill about vocational rehabilitation, and so obviously we supported it. So yeah.
Okay. And then, what do you think is the best way to spread awareness about
I mean, I think in spreading awareness, I think informing our government employees and making sure that they're well aware of the laws pertaining to these situations is the first place to start. I mean, completely for people who are who would be affected by such legislation of this. Normal things, common things we do like ad campaigns, making sure that all our websites are updated on all the information on there, prominently features that. That has not been a primary concern of my governor's cabinet currently, and if it does become an issue, we can revisit legislation and consider what's it called, possible paths of action in order to make sure that it is known by the general population.
How do you feel about Trump's airstrikes on Syria, and how are y'all gonna either support or condemn that?
As a state governor, for me, I mean, I do not deal with foreign policy, and I mean, legally speaking, I do not have the right to rule about how America should act towards foreign countries. So, from a legal standpoint, and as the governor, I will not be doing anything concerning it legislatively. You know, nothing legislatively. Personally, I believe that in his campaign, Trump ran on lowering our involvement in Syria, and that this is in direct contradiction with his campaign promise, and based on America's former projects in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and I mean, and going back in many Latin American countries, have shown that I am personally one who does not have led me to possess the view that America should be looking towards less military interaction and hostile foreign interaction in other countries, and that there should be more respect for sovereignty. Regardless of the opinions of Al-Assad, I believe that we should not be stepping in currently and using our military or using airstrikes. So, on a personal viewpoint, I am not in support of Trump's new military actions.
Alan Liu, CCS, what do you want your legacy as governor?
So in general, based on what we discussed in my State of the State address and the bills that we've passed, I just want to have a focus on prison reform, specifically infrastructural updates, and helping to protect citizens and increase the quality of our state. Those would probably be the three primary things I want my legacy to be.
I put opinion Ravenwood, as I believe you heard, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is being testified for stealing from personal data from 87 million Facebook users. Do you believe that it is very important to protect data, and if so, why?
I definitely believe it is important to protect data. I mean, the thing is, many of our laws were written before the digital era, before this expansion in technology. I mean, so a lot of our laws need updating. Data is something that is personal. I mean, I believe there was a Supreme Court ruling about cell phones, unwarranted searches on cell phones, which was done by the Supreme Court. I'm trying to remember the exact case, but it established that our information is private and that it, legally speaking, it is supposed to be private. And my opinion is that, I mean, data, today we can find a lot of information about ourselves online. And whether that's good or bad, it is important that we make sure that citizens are protected where possible, and that a lot of this data can be used harmfully and maliciously, as we have seen before. So, like, policy-wise, I would support stuff like the EU has something called the right to be forgotten, if you're familiar with that. So I would support stuff like that in dealing with data and integration into the new digital age, so to speak.
You see through our Ravenwood High School, do you believe that a massive infrastructure plan would hurt the state's credit rating in some way, shape, or form because of the massive spending? And by that logic, do you think that you might lose faith in some of your supporters because you'll end up hurting the bonds that Tennessee uses?
So I believe that's a bit of a leading question, but no, I don't think it will hurt our credit rating at all.
Why?
Because my budget and my GovCab will work and spend all the time necessary to ensure that we develop a safe financially safe plan and make sure that it goes through all the necessary channels. And I mean, the state of Tennessee does have a large rainy day fund that we have access to. I believe the most recent tally was $37.5 billion. So if necessary, we will pull all the stops to make sure that we develop a fiscally safe and sound plan. So I do not believe it will hurt a credit rating at all.
High School. What particular aspects of prison reform are you looking at?
Okay, so our prison, I mean, this has been discussed over and over by the gubernatorial candidates, but our prisons are overcrowded, and that's a huge issue for obvious reasons. So we will be looking to reduce that population, and that's why I supported the nonviolent drug offenders bill and giving them a reduced or removed sentence. So I will also be looking to decriminalize those acts if possible to ensure that there are no future drug offenders that are ending up in jail. Mandatory minimums, I am completely against those, and if legislation arrives that would work towards removing those, I would be in support for that. So that would be to reduce the overcrowding and people who, in my opinion, should not be in jail in the first place. And then I'm looking to lower the rate of recidivism because, I mean, another issue with that contributes to the overcrowding is that a large percentage of people going to prison will end up back in prison as a result of the fact that our prisons are structured based on currently punishment rather than rehabilitation. So another part of my administrative platform is to focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment, following the more Scandinavian, Norwegian model of things. So one way to do that is to promote classes and promote education in prison systems, ensuring that we're looking to care for their mental health and physical health at a greater rate. Outside of that, yeah, I mean, those are the main aspects of my platform.